Okay, I think it is very safe to say that a lot of us understands the dangers of opioid, whether it's something personal that you struggle with, whether you've seen friends, family, coworkers, whoever struggle with their addiction, pain management, and ultimately, losing their battle to addiction. It's a very dangerous thing. But do you understand and do you know the histories of opioid? How we got to this point, making it a major crisis? Well, that's okay because I didn't either, nor did I ever really think to look up this information. Nonetheless, this documentary has you covered. So, anyway, we're going to start this review of this new two-part documentary that's going to be dropping very soon. So, let's get into this review of that right now. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. As I said, we're going to be reviewing the two-part documentary, The Crime of the Century, which is going to be dropping on HBO. Part 1, May 10th, and the second part the following night, May 11th. This documentary is a lot. There's a lot of information to intake here. And if you coming in here pretty cut clean like me and don't know much about the history, it's a lot. And you will be mind blown of some of the things you hear because you're hearing from all sorts of people involved with the scandal, the corruption, people who were personally affected, people on both sides of this, people who push the narratives of opioid use for pain management, and the ones who were totally against it, and ones that even flipped. So there's a lot, and you're talking from pharmaceutical representatives, you're talking from top CEOs. You're talking about federal agents being involved with this. There's so many people involved in this documentary. It's legitimately done very, very well. It's just a lot of information to take in. It is 2 hours each night, which makes it a total of 4 hours. And again, you're talking about you're hearing testimonies from whistleblowers, insiders. You get newly leaked documents, which on top of that too, of those newly leaked documents, I actually went and did my research a little bit too while watching it, and a lot of that information is readily available online for you to check out. And it's a lot to even intake, even reading it as well. Again, exclusive interviews, behind the scene access to investigations. You're talking to medical professionals, you're talking to journalists, former and current government agents, attorneys, pharmaceutical sale representatives, all sorts of people involved. People who were actually personally affected by the opioid addiction, whether they're family members that they've lost or whether they were the ones who were under the addiction, ones who were prescribed medication, a vast amount of it. Very, very wrongdoings up and down the board. It's so many people involved with it. And I really do got to rely on my notes heavy here because it is so much to intake. And then within the two parts too, I mean, part one, you're kind of focusing on the company Purdue Pharma, which pretty much got all of this started. They started with their brand of pain management, OxyContin. We all know it. We've all heard it. OxyContin is stronger than morphine, and we talked about they talked about how they got it going. They talked about how they marketed it, how they advertised it, how they tried to make it even a cool thing with some of like the social trends they tried to attach with it, how they targeted certain people, how they were targeted for $1 million lawsuits, but they were making billions of dollars, so they were just paying it like it was nothing just to keep what they were doing on the hush. So like, I mean, left and right where they getting hit by lawsuits, and they were just like, yeah, no problem, we'll pay that, just keep this on the hush. And I mean, this is a constant battle between them and the government, not to mention how they had the FDA kind of on their side, and working through loopholes in order to market it as if opioids were not the cause of this, but it was actually the abusers who were. But I mean, you're talking about people being prescribed 25 take 25 pills every 12 hours. That's 50 pills in a day. There's nothing in the world that you need that much, but they made it seem like it was perfectly okay. And I mean, you even hear firsthand testimonies from a guy who lost his wife, and he has footage and pictures of her behavior changes and all sorts of things. Got her clean, and then they, he goes back to her to her doctor, and her doctor's like, I'm the one who tells her how she needs to live her life, and I'm the one that's going to prescribe her what she needs. Got her back hooked, and she ultimately passed. I mean, you got some really, really, really crazy things going on here. And I mean, you're hearing from people's mouths saying like, this is how I prescribe because this is what I feel is best. And even people that's still in complete denial that opioids are not the cause of it. And like, not only just that too, because if you really don't know much about it, it does really kind of explain to you like the science of how opioids work in regards to Oxycontin. So like when you break that down, it's the idea of like the continuous release. So like when you take the pill, it just continues to release its medication throughout the day. So like it explains to you sort of how it works. Because me, I've never tried any of this stuff. I've never had pain medicine, so I only had suspicion about how some of these things work. But I mean, this documentary breaks it down for people who know absolutely nothing about it. Explains to you the history of the plants, from the poppy plants, all the way from the times where they first discovered in Egypt, then moved over to India, and then how it ultimately was considered. I mean, even back in the day, they even considered it to be a bad thing. But I mean, you're even getting all the way from historical times to now as to why this was considered the solution for pain. And then you realize that people say, well, we can make this marketable. I mean, this pill, they made, like at the time, Viagra was the most popular medication out there. And it like blew it out the water. And like they put it in rural areas, and they completely took over, places like Maine and people in places like West Virginia, and like really, really affected major communities with it. It just swarmed, and like wherever you look, somebody was having overdose. And I mean, you're getting statistics and all sorts of different things happening. So like, it's really a lot. And then if that wasn't if that wasn't bad enough, then part two goes into fentanyl, which happens to be way worse than Oxycontin. So as if like we didn't already like understand the dangers of one medication, we come out with a new one, and this medication, more recent now, brings us a little bit more current with things, because the part one really is dealing with things like early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. This one's getting really current with things, even showing you the effects of things during the pandemic and and then our recent administration, the effects of it as well. I mean, yeah, it's like it just doubles down everything that had happened before. They get hit with lawsuits, they pay it off, they're making so much money, and it's just a constant cycle of abuse within these pharmaceutical companies, their prescribers, and all these different stakeholders who are involved. I mean, they're getting people, and like the schemes that they do, but they're getting people to turn blind eye to this. Because they don't really care about the victims, the communities, and everybody involved. They're just worried about the vast amount of money that they intake and the loopholes that they can pull around in the government. And it's really bad. It is really, really bad. Again, it's just so much. It really, really is so much. It's really hard to wrap your head around, because it's sad because of the negligence, and we're talking about millions of people's lives being affected by this each and every year. Whether people struggling with addiction, the number of people overdosing, the number of deaths tied to it as well. It's a really serious thing, and it's still happening. Why this documentary, highlights everything from the historical times to right now. It's still happening, but this does bring. If it does anything, it definitely brings to you the attention the complete story of everything that's going on. So you are fully aware that, much like I thought initially, somebody gets pain, they go get medicine prescribed, and they just decide to just overdose on it. But when you actually understand how this medication works, how the prescribers, essentially want to treat pain with really reckless intent, because you know, hearing this one guy where they were just like, hey, we want you to test this out. And what they did was they told him they'll give him an unlimited supply for free. And then it was like, yeah, just keep taking it. It's impossible for you to get addicted to it. Just keep taking it. And he took up to 25 pills a day, and he just kept doing it. And he knew something was wrong. But they used him as a guinea pig because they told him, it was like, well, like, if you've never got addicted, then no one else will. And so they used him as part of their marketing campaign as to like, here's an example of why opioids aren't the problem. It's the users that are the problem. But when you understand the science of the medicine, then you clearly see. And then on top of that, it's been proven. And millions of dollars of lawsuit have been settled by it, yet they keep coming out with stronger things, still prescribing things to people without really sitting here and trying to diagnose the people the correct way. They just realize there's money to be made, and as long as money is to be made, and not to mention you have illegal medication coming into the country as well, that's creating all type of street contentions, whether it's violence or whatever it may be, illegal activity. It's just a lot predicated around the opioids, and again, you know, you have drug dealers on the corners, but you also have drug dealers essentially in lab suits, and like they make sure that you very vividly understand that there's dangers wherever this is involved with it, and there's tons of corruptions, cover-ups, and all sorts of things, and it's crazy. So, but yeah, again, this is the crime of the century, which it really is the crime of the century, which is going to be releasing on HBO May 10th for part 1, which is 2 hours, and then the following night you'll get part 2 with another additional 2 hours. It's a lot, and to sum this up, you're getting a lot of information. But if you love a good documentary, check this out. Be prepared to be educated. Be prepared to be shocked. Be prepared to just be baffled, dumbfounded, all sorts of emotions, because it really is sad. It's really sad to see these people really just the corruption, how this has affected so many people's lives, and they just don't care. And when you're hearing, you know, original audio and even current interviews with people, and they're just like, I don't care, give them more. The solution was always give them more. Anytime anybody's having any issues, give them more. And you're seeing people of all ages dying from this, and it's really sad. So hopefully everybody watching this, whether this review or the documentary, hopefully everyone's doing safe, and you know, and hopefully, you know, you understand more about the problems and addictions with opioids. It's a really big crisis. A lot of people have been affected by this, and hopefully you learn something to help somebody else. So, but anyway, that'll do it on my review, folks, and I'll see you all for another review very soon. Big Gold Bell.